Alright, so yesterday I picked up these two jet skis. Pretty happy about the purchase. They're both not running, so they're going to be projects. This one here is a 1996 Sea-Doo GTI. It's running off of starter fluid, but it's not running off of gas, so today we're going to clean the carbs and stuff and get that figured out. And this is a 96 Sea-Doo XP, a little bit more aggressive of a ski. And that one's not running at all, so we'll get both of these guys running, and then my plan is to fix them up to a lot better condition, make them look new. My first goal is to get these guys running good, so I want to have them running good so I can take them out on the lake a few times this summer. A common problem on all of these carbureted two-strokes is there's a little filter in the two-stroke about the size of your pinky. The pinky finger, the top part of it, and they get gummed up with a bunch of stuff over time, so I'm going to clean that out. That's a common issue, and also the fuel lines on these things tend to go bad from having fuel sitting in them. So I'm going to check on both those things, clean out the filter and box here, and I've already removed the screws just to make this go quicker, but they were all 5mm Allen wrenches. So you just take off the cover. It has slide pins, you just slide them off. I think there's about 5 of them, or maybe 6. And you just slide the pin that slides over this off. It's pretty easy. And then there's 2 Allen bolts here and 2 Allen bolts here that you remove. And then there's 6 that go around this air filter screen. And then you can just pull this guy off. We got our air filter. Take that out. What I'm going to do next is put a little fuel into the carburetor just to verify that it will run when we bypass that filter, to kind of rule some other things out. Just to recap what I did there, I took some of this 2-cycle engine oil and I'm going to pre-mix it so the engine doesn't run without any oil in it, since it hasn't started in a long time. I use this guy with the ounce readings just to tell how much oil I'm putting into the water bottle, so I can get a general idea of the mix ratio. Now I'm going to fill this thing up with about 8 ounces of gasoline, which is about halfway up on this bottle. So to about, right about there, maybe a little higher. Now that we got our fuel pre-mixed, I'm just going to dump a little bit in each carburetor. So I got it in there. And now what we're gonna do is choke it and see if it'll fire up just for a second. Alright, sweet, so it fired up. So we can discount anything on the after the carburetor in the engine. So now we just gotta go through those filters and see if that's the issue. Next, we're going to take our 6mm Allen key and take out this bolt and this far one over here holding the carburetor on. After you remove that 6mm Allen key bolt, there's another one on each side of each carburetor. You're going to want to remove these ones as well to remove the carburetor. After you remove those 2 bolts from each carburetor, the carburetor is going to be loose on there and ready to come off. You'll just have to remove this hose that goes into the engine. Then you'll want to remove your throttle and choke linkages. And after that, these things should be ready to come out and be cleaned. To remove this hose here, it had a zip tie on it, so I just cut it with a pair of dikes and then twisted it off of there. It was pretty easy. Removing the throttle and choke linkage is pretty easy as well. You'll just have to undo these bolts on here all the way, and then you should be able to pop it off. After you guys remove your cable from the bracket, there's a bolt here and a bolt here, and this will remove the entire cable from your carburetor. And you'll do the same thing after you remove your throttle bracket. There's a bolt here and a bolt there, and you'll remove both of those. These ones are 10s, these are 12 millimeters. Pretty straightforward. One thing I forgot to mention, if you have a dual carburetor assembly and go to remove your cables, you'll have to remove the cable from this side and also the other side. It's a 10 millimeter nut to loosen. Alright, so here I got all the stuff I took off. All the nuts and bolts are in place. I do this just so I don't lose anything, especially when you're new to a different kind of project or vehicle. It's definitely nice to have your nuts and bolts all laid out for when you go put it back together. I see a lot of people who haven't worked on stuff very much make that mistake of just setting it off to the side and saying they'll figure it out when they put it back together, and that never usually works. Alright, so we got the carburetors all the way off of there and ready to tear down. Okay, so we're going to start with removing these screws here. After you remove those screws, this tab here, you can just pop it off. After you remove the screw that was here, you can pull out your needle valve. Here's your needle valve. And you just want to spray it down with some carb cleaner and inspect it. This one doesn't look too bad, but you want to make sure there's no ridge on the cone here. And squirt some carb fluid into where it sits. Now we're going to take the bolts out on the other side. It's a little dirty on this side as well, and then there's some dirt. There's some dirt on this guy that we'll have to clean up too with the carb cleaner. One thing to note when you're using the carb cleaner is keep it away from rubber things, it'll dry it out. Pull our filter out of here. As you can see, it's way too dirty. It's full of dirt, and that's definitely why it wouldn't want to run. So we're gonna have to clean that. Well, I got this thing all cleaned out, and it looks a lot better. Definitely looks way better than it did before. This thing was packed full of stuff. What I did to clean it out is I just took a really small Allen key and I just dug it into the filter and kind of just broke up the rubber stuff that was in there. This nasty stuff that came out of there, I know these hoses on, or the gas lines on these 90 model Sea-Doos are known to go out. And what this stuff looks like, this is what was gummed up in the filter, but what this stuff looks like here is innards from the gas line that just got into the carb over time and clogged up the filters. And this O-ring type thing here definitely felt a little dry. I feel like it wasn't sealing all the way, so it probably let even more in through the filter. So I'm definitely going to need to get a carb rebuild kit. I'll probably just put this together tonight to verify that it fires up for you guys. and to verify that was the issue, and then I'll get a carb rebuild kit and do that so it'll be more reliable this summer. Now that I got this carburetor back together, I'm going to show you guys what the filter was doing, or why it was clogging up. So you have this hose here that comes in, and from this arrow you can see that's your inlet, and then it travels up through the filter here and goes out here. So the issue is if particulate comes through here and goes out through that filter, that's going to clog it up over time. Now I'm just going to perform the same tasks on the other carburetor. I'm not going to show you guys that just because you should already know how to do it. Alright, so I got the carbs back in. I hooked up my hoses, and it's easiest to do this while your carb's not bolted down and loose. And also I was able to put on all the linkages and stuff without too much difficulty. You definitely want to take a picture of the linkages though before you take them apart, just so you can remember how they went back together, so it can get a little confusing. Alright, well we got the carb bolted down, and before I put all the air stuff back on, I'm just going to make sure it fires and prime the lines with more fuel. Alright, I'm just going to see if it starts again real quick. For watching the video today. It's definitely a common problem that the carburetor filter gets gummed up on these, so if yours isn't starting, definitely something to check. And we're going to be doing a lot more videos on these guys, so if this is something you like, then definitely subscribe to the channel. And we're also doing dirt bike builds and other off-road stuff, so if that's what you're into, we got more for you.